Hey everybody, we have a new episode, and this one features Alex Earl of Midwest Rehabilitation Institute. This is the guy that Kyle and I have gone to a couple DNS courses over in Milwaukee, hosted by him. Um, Great stuff, a whole bunch of different offerings from Midwest Rehabilitation Institute, so that's worth checking out. Very special to this episode, though, they have a DNS symposium coming up in early September, the 7th through the 11th down in Chicago. And through this episode, Alex has created a code that if you utilize when you register and check out, that will save you some money on going to these courses. If that is something that interests you. So you're going to use promo code clinically pressed at checkout to receive the discounts. They aren't valid on any registration that has already happened or with any other promo code, but definitely if you haven't looked at that yet or you're looking to do another one, we highly recommend you check that out. We will have a full list of how all of that breaks down at clinicallypressed.com, just on the top of the show notes, so please check that out. We'll do clinicallypressed.com /MWRI, so you can get that to check all those out. And with that, we talk continuing ed in this episode, and it's a great dive into it all, and we hope that you enjoy it. So welcome to this episode of Clinically Pressed. It's been a long weekend. Just finished up DNS course 2, exercise course 2. Make sure I say it right. We're at Goodyear Chiropractic in Milwaukee. We're here with Alex Earl.
Thanks for having me back.
Put the whole thing together, as he always does. So we just released the other, by the time this comes out, you'll have already been out for a while, but we had one on you before, and we wanted this one to be a follow-up and talk more what you do with Midwest Rehabilitation Institute and just the whole continuing ed, because it's something that we both firmly believe in, obviously, since we're here. And I know our buddy AJ does as well. So
Cool.
You want to just give kind of an overview of what it is, first
Yeah.
and foremost?
Yeah, so I guess Midwest started with an opportunity. And so I was a sixth trimester student in chiropractic school, and of 10, so I had about a year and a quarter left to go. And the rehab instructor, his name was Tom Selecki, and really good clinician, really good instructor. And he has an alphabet after his name. So the guy graduated from Logan and then worked in Racine, Wisconsin for 10 years in private practice, and just continued to get as many certifications. And he got certified in like maybe 15 different things over the years. And his drive to remain in this education realm of constantly learning, I mean, he was full body ART certified for, he's been for 15, 16 years now, maybe even longer. But so he had his rehab diplomate, and so I approached him with about actually 15 other people in just my trimester in school. And we just said, like, we love rehab, we want to learn more about rehab, how you integrated it in your practice and how we can do it with our patients. And he was like, well, let's just do a program. We'll put a seminar on. And originally it was one seminar where he was going to just talk about corrective exercise and and the basics. And then he kind of pulled me aside and was like, do you want like the diplomate, because we can make a 150-hour program. And I was like, yeah, I want that. And so then I asked all my peers in school, and they're like, yeah, we want that too. So then him and I sat down at Starbucks near his house, and we mapped out 150 hours of updated modern rehab, including post-surgical and taping and literally everything. And it was fun. The whole process was fun. And I was a student, so I just told him, I'll do all the legwork, you just teach, and I'll get people there, and but I don't want to pay. Like, yeah, I'll do all the work. I will get people there. You can keep all the money. Like, I don't think we should charge people a lot because we're students. So we kept it at like, I I think it was between $125 and $150 for 12 and a half hours. It was not a lot, but I mean, there's no overhead. We had the place that I was actually working at. The doc that was there also was really interested in the rehab stuff, so he just said it was like this. He had a pretty nice facility. He's like, just have it here, and so he sat in on the classes and eventually got his diplomate as well. And so it really started with just a conversation about getting the diplomate, and then it was about the 6th or 7th class in that he pulled me aside and he was like, I think we are onto something here. And he could see it. I couldn't see it because I was just in the 150 hours, and I thought we were done. And he was like, I think that we're onto something here. One of the highest attended classes was his post-surgical class. It's a really good class. There was 44 people there. And so he came up and was like, I think we're onto something. I think we need to actually make a company. And I was like, I didn't know that opportunity was going to land on my lap. And then from there, we went through the whole program, and he was like, the next thing we should do is offer a DNS class. I was like, okay, how do I do that? So he was the vision, and then I was the implementer, and I was the student the whole time. And so I took a couple DNS classes, and then I kind of got to know the people on the inside and how to organize it, and then we started organizing them. And the first DNS class we ever had was with Petra and Robert Lardner, and we had 54 people at that class, and we were both like, okay, we're on to this education thing. We can get people in a class for sure, and we were very approachable to students, and we're very we would make exceptions for them on prices and work with them. So that's why students are drawn to us very much so. But really, that's what it started with. It just started with a conversation, and then I didn't even think a company was going to come out of it. And then I should say that in September then, he's actually getting married this summer, and so then we had a transition where he recently phased out of Midwest, and right now it's just me. So I'm running Midwest altogether, and I never would have thought that running education classes is where I would be less than 2 years outside of graduation. I thought I'd be working in a clinic, maybe under someone or as an associate, but I couldn't work as an associate somewhere and do Midwest. How do you think that conversation would go on the interview?
Yeah, by the way, I'm not going to be here much.
Hey, so you want 40 hours a week? I'll give you 10, okay? Because I do so much outside of this. So then it was just by default, I do a lot for Midwest, so I'll open up my own practice. And it literally was that kind of conversation. And my wife was like, go for it. I love you. I support you. I think you can do it. I'm like, okay. And it was like that. That's when I decided to open up on my own. But it was nice because as I was a student and then going through clinicals and all that stuff, then I never went to a bank and asked for a loan. I had startup capital on day one. So that was from a business sense. I also learned a ton from Selecki, and so then that just kind of put me on the path towards success. I wouldn't say I'm successful, but I like all of us. We're on the path. Some are sprinting, and some are walking. But at least we're all on the right path.
Depends on the time of the year.
True.
Sprinting versus walking.
So that was a lot. I don't know. Is that good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting to hear. It's pretty cool that you're a part of something that affects so many people. As a clinician, you're able to affect change and make a difference in people's lives on a one-on-one level, and you're able to do that with your practice, but then also to have that effect on all these providers, that then the trickle-down effect with all their patients, to be able to have a part of that's got to be pretty fulfilling.
It's very fulfilling because and even on the last podcast, I think we talked about Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, and all about how inspiring leaders dramatically change industries. And I wouldn't say by any means I'm an inspiring leader or going to change an industry, but I think every class that we put on is getting better than the class before it. So my organizational skills, my interpersonal skills, and working with people and making sure the speaker is happy and the attendees are all happy, and it's not, I won't say a unique experience, because there are other DNS classes that are amazing as well outside of Midwest, and there are other rehab classes that are really good, but I try to make it one of the highest standard classes that we can offer.
I think you do a very good job.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I do.
Kind of on that, on one of our questions, kind of the trends you're seeing. I know Brett mentioned it in our last episode, how his students are seminar gypsies.
Yes.
I believe is how he referred to it.
It's so true.
Just how competitive the space has got. And I mean, I know from my end, on the athletic training side, what SE and then some of the strength and conditioning, like I guess this is a very broad question even for you, like trends you're seeing across continuing education, like
Yeah.
Are we swinging upward? Is it starting to become where it's now everybody's trying to get something to just make that extra side, you know?
Yeah, I think that continuing education companies do a good job of kind of like seeing what the market is and then trying to provide whatever that niche may be. So like currently the trend would be almost towards like the pain sciences. So you'll see a lot of like Greg Lehman. I actually went to his class 2 weeks ago in Nashville, and it almost like took some of the rehab stuff that I had been ingrained in my head, even that I learned in the diplomate and all the other stuff. It kind of like took it on its head, and of course he's using scientific papers to justify what he's talking about. So it was very eye-opening. It's a tremendous course. I actually highly recommend it. He's a very entertaining instructor as well, but knows his stuff for sure. He worked under Stu McGill in the laboratory up in Waterloo, Canada. But there's a definite shift from simple mechanical pain to there's something else going on here outside of it. And he even says there's a subpopulation of people that when pain is involved in the situation, it doesn't matter what you do with them on a table, off a table, like they're a 10 out of 10 no matter what.
Yeah.
And so I would say there's been a shift from the normal traditional MSK rehab into almost like maybe overshooting, because there's not that many people that really have that type of chronic pain or very heightened, neurogenic or central sensitization pain that he sees frequently of. And sometimes just them talking about their pain actually reduces their pain.
Right.
And so that's kind of that model. Like that's kind of where that trend is going towards. A lot of people are interested in that. I still think that there's a good amount of interest from people that graduated from PT school or DC school or even athletic training, but they want something that can benefit them on Monday morning after a class, and not like, oh, well, you got to take part B or you got to take the second class. So I think that there's a good trend towards pain science, but there's still the foundation in rehab that's still there. So
Cool.
It's interesting.
it was a good course. I drew, and Mosley has a class, and then also Shacklock has like a neurodynamics course.
I've heard that's a good
that all I haven't gone to some of them, those two, but I have done Greg Lehman's course, and it was very good. Really good notes. In fact, one of the cool things about his class is that he, once you take the class, he'll give you access to his Google Drive. So then all of his papers are on there. So either the ones that he was a part of, the research behind, or the ones that he finds. So he's got them all sectioned off, like hip, low back pain.
Yeah.
And so if you want something to either print off and give to someone, there it is. Like you have a library right there. The funny one is he has one that says it's like to be filed. And it's all of the things that interest him, but he just hasn't gone through.
Right.
And there's like there might be 1,000 papers in there.
Imagine.
He's like, so if you get bored on a Saturday, go ahead and arrange those or orient those on the Google Drive page. But I don't have any free Saturdays, so I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
You're a little busy.
Yeah.
I know that's one we kind of talked about where you said about going and suspending belief. I think that's one we're big on and trying to encourage people is just, I'm a jack of all trades guy, and I know even Brett said it, and I thought he said it really well, is, instead of having somebody be like okay at 20 things, be like really good at 3 or 4, and I agree with that completely, and then I just like to take it the next step, but at least be aware of what else might be out there, and I haven't done any sort of kinesio taping course, but I kind of want to go, just suspend everything, drink the Kool-Aid, see what I get out of it, and just because you never know, that might be your one thing that's going to fix
That's true.
this kid. Athletic trainer told me a story about all they would do for one kid is put a piece of white tape across the front of their leg.
Done.
Pain went away.
Yeah.
Nothing else worked. Just put a piece of tape there, and that's what it took.
Yeah.
I think it sometimes challenges you to look at things a little differently too. Maybe it's not even the main point of the course, but when you can kind of put together your background or maybe some of the other stuff that you've learned and then look at it from maybe this spin, it might just help your understanding a little bit. So.
And being able to check your ego at the door. Coach
Or-
John talked a
yeah.
lot about that.
Yeah.
Just be in the open book. Like that guy, here's all my stuff.
Yeah.
You can have it, but I'm probably still going to apply it in a different way, which is why I'm good at what I do, and you may be good at however you do it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sometimes I think it reaffirms your beliefs with maybe you take a course and it's just not for you at all, and it's just like, all right, well, what I'm doing is perfect for me because I know I don't want to do this.
I would agree with you because, I was just recently looking at some quotes, and I'm a big fan of Jim Rohn, who's kind of like a motivational speaker, very charismatic guy, and he talks about the book that you don't read won't help you. And my view also is the course you don't take won't help you. So nothing is completely useless. It can at least teach you how not to behave or how not to treat someone, or it can really open your eyes into, oh, I never thought that this would be really good for this patient with this condition at this time.
or connected to that.
Or
course
connected
you took
to,
it.
yeah.
You can always learn something.
You can always, yeah.
Same thing with
yeah.
people too. I think there's always something to be offered or
Yeah.
learned from. And
That was my favorite part of going to track meets, is I would just sit there and watch what everybody else was doing, just to see what crazy stuff they were coming up with. Just, I don't know if I took everything home, because some of it was like, oh boy, but a lot of it I was like, I never thought about that before. Cupping and Grafton.
and if you're-
at the same time, never thought of it. Super interesting concept.
But if you have that mindset where you're
Right.
open to something that maybe you were previously not open to, or maybe something that, like you said, I would have never thought of that. But you're not like, nope, this is me, this is what I do, here's what you get. And that way, ultimately, it's the patient or the client that is going to benefit from your willingness to implement some of these other things that maybe a more closed-minded person would stop and be like, no, we're doing this. And then maybe they plateau. And my biggest fear is that I would plateau as a provider, where I would be, amazing for 10 years, and then like I would just coast and be like, okay, I'm cool, I've done this for 10 years.
Yeah.
And Brett said it before, but I hope in 10 years from now, I'm practicing totally different than how I am today.
Right.
And it's because of, just like you said at the last podcast, it was getting better every day while you're, in this clinical setting. So if that's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, your stock is always going in the right direction.
For sure.
Julie made a nice comment, the instructor for the course this weekend, and I kind of asked her about her treatments, how she kind of practices over there and what she does, and it was kind of cool to hear her say that she doesn't use DNS, like exactly DNS on every patient. She's like, the principles, like the concepts, of course I apply to every patient, but to hear her say that like she likes to look at, other options and apply them and integrate them, and I'm sure that it's a lot more DNS than our perception of, she's not out there probably just doing some voodoo stuff, but I don't know. She said Pavel is kind of that way too. I'm sure, so that is kind of one of the topics I guess we wanted to talk about. You went over to Prague last fall?
Yeah, in August,
Okay,
mid to late August, yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, first of all, I should say I never left the country. I've never left the U.S. So this was not only like getting a passport was a big deal, but then actually getting on the huge, British Airways plane, and then I'm sitting there thinking like, this is kind of surreal. This is not something that that I've ever done. So just getting invited and then going out there and learning, it was a unique experience. I was exhausted because it was a full day of lecture and practical, and then we'd have lunch, but then I would just go back to the hotel, and just like my mind was just racing all over the place with what I just witnessed for 8 hours, and I would just sleep and wake up and then go back the next day. It was very hands-on, so that part I really appreciated because you're in a hospital, and I was there with Selecki, so I was there with him, and then there's some other people that I knew that were out there, but the hospital in Prague it's European style hospital, so we joked that it was like straight out of MASH, like what we picture the Prague school, we picture all this stuff, but then like the hospital was like people walking around with like like picks in their nose and stuff like that. Like I'm like, where am I right now? Like this is the Prague school. Like it was, because they're right near like the infectious disease place and stuff like that. So like everybody is in everybody's way, and it was fun. Don't get me wrong, but then like you look at it and you're like, this is the Prague school, and here's all the patients, and here's all the Prague physios, like all their offices and everything like that. It was really fun and exciting to see you know, even on like the pictures you can see on the slides. And I was like, oh, I recognize that room, and we've been in there and stuff like that. But I will say, though, that Pavel has a private clinic that we did a tour of, where he treats patients, and Petra works there. And that is a phenomenal facility. Very modern, very up-to-date, very, it has MRI included in there. It's got like all advanced imaging, very high-tech rehab stuff for vestibular conditions or serious neurological conditions. So that was, I mean, probably a multi-million-dollar facility that is Pavel's private clinic. So that was really cool to see, you know, like a day in the hospital setting and then a day in the private practice it was phenomenal.
So how did that differ? How would you say that those two differed?
Well, when we visited the Pavel's private clinic, it was after hours, so we had like a dinner there. There's a restaurant inside, so we had dinner there, and that way the patients, because from what I heard, even talking to Julia this weekend, that the clinic is very busy, so they couldn't like shut it down to have all the 30, 35 people in there. But the hospital there's open spaces, and that way we could bring in case patients and talk about them there. Every day we had, maybe not every day, but 2 or 3 days we had cases where Pavel would examine someone or Petra would examine someone. But we couldn't do that at his private clinic because nobody was there. But it was nice to have the access to the patients at the hospital, yeah.
Sure.
It was good, though. It was really fun, yeah.
I bet you learned a lot.
I did. Like, I've heard a bunch of different speakers talk on the same topic, but then when a lot of the physios, even American instructors or foreign instructors or the Prague physios are talking about the same topic, you'll get different perspectives, but you'll get 1 or 2 things out of it that you've never heard before. So a shameless plug for continuing education is to continue to take the class that maybe you've already taken several years ago, because if it's with a different instructor, you're going to get a totally different outcome. Or I shouldn't say outcome, but you'll get the same material but with a different kind of perspective based on like how Robert Lardner treats will be different than how Brett treats, or different how Petra treats, or Rich Holm. Like, you will have 2 to 3 to 4 different perspectives of the same concept. And so that's what I appreciate about it. I took maybe 4 to 6 DNS classes last year. I took 4 A courses with 4 different instructors, and I got so much out of it just from the 4 different instructors. So I highly recommend it.
I believe that.
Do you have any other pressing questions on continuing ed, or anything else that you want to cover that we didn't ask?
Well, I guess I would just say that I try not to provide courses that where it's kind of like here's a recipe, because I try to make or try to bring the classes in where fit the DNS model, where it's concept driven.
Yep.
Because I want to, just like what you were talking about with Julia, how she does or doesn't practice DNS, like with patients, but as long as the principles and the concepts are respected, then you can do dry needling in a DNS position. You can do factor in a DNS position. Factor is concepts. Dry needling is more of a technique. But I think that if you can kind of package a continuing education program around concepts, then you'll be really successful. That's just my opinion. And that's what I'm trying to do, is provide concepts so that if you came in with hip pain, you might both identify and evaluate the same dysfunction, but the 3 of us could manage it totally differently, but get the same result because we respect the concepts.
For sure.
So I would just say that that's what I try to do and try to provide.
I like that. It's always not the easiest route.
It's
either.
not, no.
I think that scares some people, or from when I was in school or like going through seminars, I think it wasn't for everybody just because they wanted that cookie cutter. Said, I want to, see this, and that's easier. But I think, if you put in the time and like engulf yourself in this, you can pick up on those concepts, and in the end, it's much greater.
Well, they're no different than patients, right? When patients walk into our offices with shoulder pain, they say, well, can I have 3 to 5 exercises to work on this? And we're like, well, I haven't evaluated you. How do we know what the actual structures involved are? And yet it's no different than if someone comes in like, hey, I got a patient in my office with back pain. Can you give me 3 to 5 exercises? I'm like, sorry, man. Like, I either send me video of something that he's doing, but I can't just I can't just make a recipe for you. You got to understand what's in front of you before you can then manage it. So I would say the evaluation portion is something that I take pride in, because a lot of people will stick to the neuro-ortho part of evaluation, and then their rehab is not as updated or modern as I think it could be. Like, I think even my own rehab could be always constantly updated and modern, because there's always new ways to come up with things that respect concepts and principles. So that's why I appreciate all of the variability, or all of the variations of DNS exercises, because it's never ending. Like,
It is never
we did an hour's worth of different movement flow and stuff like that today. We were all sweating, and yet we all were trying to respect the DNS principles, but yet we're not sitting here thinking, okay, well, which patient am I going to do this with? I mean, maybe you were, but I was thinking, like, I would love for, I was trying to remember to breathe
I had
and
no pressure.
elongate,
I was just,
yeah. You know, but wouldn't that be
About
amazing
that
for our
down, so.
patients to go through that and then to be like, oh, well, where's your pain? And for them to maybe realize, oh, I have way more shoulder flexion than I did, as opposed to this, like, okay, do abduction, you know, do internal external rotation with a tube. Not that
Right.
that's a bad exercise,
Nope,
or
I'm
that
with
there's you know, not scientific evidence to support its use, because there is, but is there something that affects the CNS, and then we can,
more global.
it's more global, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man, a couple of those today, my legs were just warm after. You could just feel the burn, literally. It's
You weren't alone. You weren't
it's
alone.
intense. I think it is sometimes very humbling for athletes or patients, because they see maybe a demonstration, or you kind of tell them what they're going to be doing, and they're just like, yeah, okay, it sounds kind of lame, and like, that's it. And then they do it, and it's like, oh yeah, this is a lot harder than I
Yeah.
thought it was going to be. Always.
And I joke even, and my patients are probably sick of it by now, but I joke with, when I get into a position and I start shaking, then they're like, well, look, you're already shaking. How am I supposed to do this? And I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm in the pinnacle of fitness. You'll be fine, you know? And they get this like little chuckle, but then they do it, you know, and they shake, but they saw me shaking while they were doing it. And then we tone it down and we work on the endurance, and eventually they see how hard it is to just do a basic developmental position. But most importantly, they have the improvement. So not only do they see that it was tough, but then they can improve, which everybody wants to improve.
Yeah,
And if you can
I
show
see those
improvement, yeah,
results
they
pre-
want to,
post-test.
yeah, just like Julia said this weekend, yeah, they want results within 3 visits. You know, if they're not seeing the results, then even in their mind, if they don't say anything, they're automatically not devaluing your care, but they're maybe already thinking, maybe I need a second opinion.
Right.
And but if you can show them like an intra-audit, you know, intra-session audit, we're like, hey, remember you had poor internal rotation, but we just did that position, and we go back, and now it's on its way to being normal. Maybe not normal yet. Then they're starting to see, okay, yeah, this is working.
And I think if you can explain it well, they start to understand too. You can paint that picture, and they see like, okay, this makes sense, you know, the way you're describing it.
Mhm.
And I think that helps towards their end goals, you know.
I
if they
agree.
can know what they're doing it for. Yeah, so what is
To
some,
revisit
yeah,
Yeah.
the question you thought
Man.
wasn't fair
the update,
first
Yeah.
time.
and you were gonna change it a little bit.
I'm
So
going
what
to
are you
change it a little
changing
bit.
it to?
Well, I would say the question should be that rather than what is one thing that you believe that nobody else believes, I think you should ask what is one thing that maybe a small minority of people believe, because I'm sure that there's a small minority of people that maybe believe in aliens, or, you know, that, I mean, that.
We'll have to tweak the wording. a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah, if I could
Something you
provide.
believe that the general pop.
Yeah, or maybe, you know,
I gotcha.
conspiracy theories, I don't know,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
if we could really go out there, okay?
For sure. Get her on the
So what do you-
show.
We
Yeah,
could,
right.
yeah. I don't know, like, I could take this, like, spiritual, like, you could take this into religion, so, like, I don't know. I think that there is definite spiritual warfare, so, like, people talk about maybe they don't see someone in front of them, or they do see someone, and then they're like, oh, it could have been an angel, and some people are like, I don't know, it's just, maybe they chalk it off to it was nothing, but I believe that, you know, angels and demons exist, and I'm sure that maybe there's a small, you know, population of people that believe that. But the reason is I'm not excluding things that are outside of my 3-pound brain Like if I do that, then I think you put, whatever spiritual being you believe in, and for me, if I believe in God, then I'm putting him into a box, which how can I worship a God that I can put into a box? I'm not. So that would by default make him smaller than I can imagine, which I wouldn't be able to comprehend. You know what I mean? So it's kind of that's
you
we just went.
deep stuff.
Well, you said anything,
Yeah,
and
oh,
so
yeah.
anyway, so
No, that was good. Just taking that in.
I know.
we'll just let that absorb.
Well,
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, we may have to take a break and come back.
Well, I've been reading a lot, so that's why.
Just
Yeah.
leading to the next
Yeah.
one. New book recommendations.
Oh, okay. Well, I did get for Christmas. I got last year I got a really good book for Christmas, and so I think every Christmas apparently I'm going to get a really so. Last year I got Steven Gerrard's autobiography. Steven Gerrard is a player for Liverpool in England. I'm a big Liverpool fan, so getting his autobiography was like, it was like gold. Waking up Christmas morning, and then this most recent book I got was Tim Ferriss's Tools for Titans.
Have you started reading it?
I did.
I got it. I
Yeah.
did have a stack of about 8 high, so
Yeah.
I haven't started it yet,
Yeah.
but I'm looking forward to that one.
And when you open it up and you start reading it, he says in there, just kind of meander around in there.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to read it from front to back. So that's what I'm doing. And I really, even Arnold Schwarzenegger is writing the intro in it, and even the intro about him saying that he doesn't believe that he's a self-made man. And if you looked at him, you'd be like, okay, he came from nothing, and now look at him. I mean,
One
from
book,
bodybuilding.
Arnold,
Yeah.
Arnold,
I'm talking about Arnold. Yeah. But
No,
like if you
definitely.
look at him, and for him to come out and say, well, I'm not a self-made man, then I'm thinking to myself, well, this guy is very successful, and he came from nothing, and now he was a governor. He was a very successful movie career, and now he's very politically active, and also now running the Celebrity Apprentice. But he's got a status about him, but like he attributes it all to those who helped him along the way, including the thousands of people that voted for him in California. Like he wouldn't have been governor without their support. So it's a different perspective. It's very humbling approach to like how he got to where he is, and so it kind of made me like take a step back and realize, okay, who's my supporting cast that is really kind of helping me, along this journey that we call life,
So do you recommend it then?
I do recommend it. It's a thick book, but you can go through it obviously on your own pace.
He's saying like some of the longest like sections are only like 20 to 30 pages though.
Yeah.
Oh,
But it's broken down almost.
But
by
it's
each
good. It's
guest.
good.
Okay,
So
sure.
it's kind of a rehash of the episode and just kind of everything boiled down into a book.
Nice.
I
It's
know
good.
There's one
It's good.
I've been meaning to read it, but he didn't have it on the episode. It's an article, 1,000 True Fans, basically saying you don't need 1 million, you need 1,000 people that truly believe in what you do, and you're going to be all right with that. So stuff like that is almost like an encyclopedia.
It is. It is.
So, speaking of which, now we won't put this on here. We'll talk about that afterwards.
Okay.
But speaking of Ferris, I'm stealing this one from him. The billboard anywhere you wanted, and what would it say?
Okay.
So
So
place it, and what would you put on it?
so I can't think of a place because I was thinking about like would I put it near my clinic? Would I put it near the schools that I'm at, or to try to influence people? But I think I don't know where. Maybe on like 294 in Chicago that just is going to get
There you go.
10,000 drivers a day. But I know that a guy that I met in Nashville, his name's Bo Beard. He runs a place in Birmingham, Alabama, with his wife. It's called The Farm, and their slogan is better than before. And so I was thinking about how would I take your question, spiritually, clinically, business wise, what would I put out there for people to see or for people to see and read. And I think I would put that better, like be better than before, and then I would just let it however they interpret it be.
Sure.
So it would be if someone interprets it from a business standpoint, like, man, yesterday sucked, I didn't get a deal, or I didn't close it, or well, be better today than you were yesterday, and then you'll just see all of these things like line up, and you'll just, instead of dwelling on what you did or didn't do in the past, even in cases with our patients and stuff like that, I dwelled on them. I was like, man, this is why did I felt like I sucked yesterday, but if I'm better today than I was yesterday, and I continue that on, just like Angela Duckworth's book, Brett talks about with Grit, like you are going to get better every single day, And that's what I think people should aspire for, or towards, I should say. So, but I don't know where. I don't know where.
Yeah.
We'll find out where.
There you go. Someday.
So Midwest, do you plan to keep it just all in the Midwest, or is it kind of everywhere?
It's kind of, actually, I should say, I have a problem saying no to people. So if someone calls me, I've had people email me from Asia about like trying to take some corrective exercise courses or, active care type stuff to Asia. One guy from Sweden and one guy from Amsterdam who has worked with Brett, and he kind of just saw, that we kind of do similar things and wanted a class. And I don't say no. So like all of these are potential that are out there. I teach for Factor also, so there's interest in a Factor class in Australia. So like I do want it to go global, but like I also have to kind of rein it in and see like, okay, where, it's like the 80-20 rule, like I don't want to do 100 classes and be really stretched thin. I did that in 2016, and by November I was exhausted, and so I want to just make sure that the classes I put on are the highest standard that they can be. Doesn't matter where. Some of the guys this weekend were talking about a DNS class down in Cabo, and I'm like, I'm not going to say no to that.
Right.
We're going to try to make it happen. But I think if someone in Seattle wants to do something, sure, I'll help organize that. So like even though the title or the location says Midwest,
It's just where you're based out of.
it's just where I'm based out of.
Yeah.
I'll go anywhere.
Simple solution.
Yeah, but I definitely want to broaden into international waters for sure.
I like the quality over quantity type thing too.
Because I made that
Very
mistake
good.
last year. Yeah, so
I think the quantity was so good for or not quantity, I should say. The quality of the one that we did anyway
yeah,
was pretty
cool.
good.
No, I appreciate it.
Well, that ties into one of the other questions. If you could go back and tell the Alex of summer 2016 some advice, instead because we already got the 5 to 10 years ago version.
Yeah, I would say sleep more. That's what I would say. I was thinking about that. I mean, our daughter was born, so my wife gave birth on June 5th. And so then I was here in July, and Emmeline was sleeping great for like the first 3 months. And ironically, knowing what we know with DNS, when she got into the 3 months position and was able to look around, then that's when sleep kind of became an issue. And then by 5 and 6 months when she was turning, I mean, forget about it. She was waking us up, and she's getting much better at sleeping. But in June, definitely I should have been, I should say not June, but in July when we were talking, I should have definitely, left the cell phone out of the room, turned the computer off earlier. I got like almost like tunnel vision on the work that I felt like I needed to get done, as opposed to like just sitting down and having 15, 20 minutes with my wife and then going to bed, like I shouldn't say regret, but if I could go back and be like, no, I should have gone to sleep, or I should have spent more quality time with my wife for sure. She was a trooper last year. I got to give her,
There you go.
she was absolutely a trooper.
Oh,
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Very good. We got any more?
We got one more.
Okay.
All right, let's hear it.
What we got?
That was the, what advice would you tell, the student practitioner, we can say whether it's AT, PT, chiro, whatever it is, just finishing school, like what advice would you give them before they venture out into the real world?
I've actually got,
I think is better.
I've actually got two things. So like after they decide, especially, whoever it is, if they want to do private practice or work in a hospital group or, maybe multidisciplinary, I think that with social media, that in today's day and age, it can be, you can view something and almost assume that this person is an expert on a given topic and then feel inferior. And so the one piece of advice that I would give either current students or new grads like looking to really make a breakthrough, myself included, is don't view someone's highlight reel on social media for your reality. So like if you're doing just very basic isometric stuff, why would you put that on YouTube, or why would you put that like that? Maybe it's perceived as boring, but like don't value that as inferior to some crazy, someone's on some gym ball doing ridiculous stuff, and you're like, that guy looks amazing, but don't feel inferior because of what they're doing.
Certain types of work.
Yes, yeah. So
I can already picture a bunch of them.
So a colleague friend of mine who actually teaches from Midwest in the acupuncture program and dry needling, his name's Eric Mitz. He runs multidisciplinary clinic in Evansville, Indiana.
Okay.
And he right away was like, don't let that make you feel inferior. And I was like, I appreciate it. It's good insight. And he's got a very successful practice. He's got a very mild, appearance on social media. He puts stuff out there when he needs to. But he is 100% in with the patients that he uses. And I respect him tremendously for it. That's why he teaches for Midwest.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
You do you.
That's right. I think the second thing that I would say is that going along the lines of like kind of maybe our mentors or our peers that we really want to aspire to be like,
Yeah.
is like don't confuse like the early years that they maybe struggled and then now they're in the successful category with your beginning years. So like don't judge them, or I should say don't judge yourself in the beginning based on their middle or
Right.
their later career. Like you have to struggle a little bit, and I have, and I'm sure you guys have as well. But you have to like stay on the course, just like not letting the social media stuff make you feel inferior, but don't let someone else's experience and reputation also kind of make you feel inferior because of maybe your inexperience of something. So definitely stay the course.
Measuring yourself by someone else's ruler.
Yeah.
It's like when we did that tour today here. I mean, she made
Yeah.
note of. I mean, this is a beautiful facility and it's
Yeah.
amazing, and it wasn't built overnight. I mean, she mentioned how much hard work
And it is.
everything that
Yeah.
went into it.
Yep.
Nice.
Very good.
Anything you want to plug? Where can people find you?
Oh, they
All
can.
that stuff.
They can find me on our website. There's if they want to contact me on that, which is rehabmri.com. They can like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Those are the two that I'm not very good at, being regular about posting. But if they, if they post stuff on there and tag Midwest in it, I'm not going to complain.
There you go.
Yeah.
Noted.
Yeah.
They'll be able to find your courses. Just
Yeah,
on the
so there's
website,
yep, right on the
basically.
homepage there's a classes and also a courses tab that just got a full list of all 12 of the DNS classes we have going on in
Nice.
2017. And also we have acupuncture and dry needling and some rehab stuff we'll throw up there later in the year.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for having
Always
me
good
again.
hanging out.
Oh, yeah.
Good deal.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. Yeah, oh, sorry.
I'm gonna keep that in just so people,
The clapping?
people realize that. Thank you for checking out this episode of Clinically Pressed. Go to clinicallypressed.com for full show notes and links to everything that we covered in this episode. While you're there, you'll have full access to all our episodes, insights, and shorts. You can find Clinically Pressed on YouTube or any podcast outlet that you use. If you could give us a rating, thumbs up, or a review on how we're doing, we would greatly appreciate it and heard it helps out quite a bit. To get more free content delivered straight to your inbox, sign up for the Total Athletic Therapy newsletter at totalathletictherapy.com or clinicallypressed.com. You'll get direct links to all the new Clinically Pressed episodes, reviews on some of the latest research in health and performance, and links to related podcasts and other items meant to help you make the complicated simple and optimize performance. Thank you for listening, and see you next episode.